Hi, Senator Hough here for our weekly update. And all the time people ask me how this session is going, how things are coming along, and I tell them, quite frankly, it's been rough. It's been a very rough session. There's been a number of liberal bills that have been around for years and years that have never come out and seen the light of day or never been able to pass. This year's different. It seems like every far-left piece of legislation is moving its way through the Maryland House or Maryland Senate, and I'm not sure what it is, if it's because the election of Governor Hogan is coming closer, or if there's a Trump derangement syndrome where the majority party has simply lost their minds down here and they're pushing some real crazy legislation. I want to give you an example of two things that are working their way through the Maryland House and or Senate that are what I think are just crazy policies. First one is Senate Bill 835 and House Bill 1362, entitled the Maryland Trust Act. Really, they would be better entitled Maryland Law Enforcement Distrust Act or Criminal Illegal Alien Protection Act. This legislation would make Maryland a sanctuary state for criminal illegal aliens. So we're not talking about, this bill doesn't really even do with just immigration. I know people have different feelings on immigration and people come here. This bill has to deal with people who are in our country illegally and who are arrested, who go through the criminal justice system. And the bill would say that local law enforcement can't work with people like the Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies to turn over these individuals. And so what happens is Department of Homeland Security issues what's called a immigration detainer request for voluntary holds. They ask local law enforcement, once their fingerprints are run for somebody, when they come into a local jail, to hold somebody if they're here illegally and they have been has engaged in suspected of terrorism, espionage. Number two, is involved with a criminal street gang like MS-13, which is on the rise in Maryland. Has been convicted of an offense classified as a felony. Has been convicted of an aggravated felony. Has been convicted of a significant misdemeanor. So basically, unless somebody they're in the country illegally and the Department of Homeland Security wants them for a serious crime like human trafficking, gang activity, terrorism, serious felonies. And just this weekend, news came out that unfortunately we had an incident at a high school in Maryland where an illegal immigrant who was actually a detainer had been issued for had committed an assault against a young girl in Rockville High School. So, and also this weekend we heard stories of MS-13 who had murdered a young man behind an elementary school in Montgomery Village. I actually happen to grow up in Montgomery Village, and it's really sad to see these things that are happening. But Montgomery County has taken the missteps of making themselves a sanctuary county. And so it is feeding into this, bringing criminal gangs and illegal immigrants there because they know they're safer from prosecution than in counties like Frederick County, which are tougher on that. And unfortunately, they want to take the wrong-headed policies of Montgomery County and spread them across the state. And one other piece of legislation I'll talk about is called the Equal Access to Food Act, Senate Bill 853, House Bill 860. What it really is taxpayer support for a Legal Drugs Act. So in the federal government in the 1990s, as part of the Welfare Reform Act, said that if you are a convicted felon for drugs, so either you are using a large amount of drugs, you are trafficking drugs, that in order to receive temporary cash assistance, support in money from the government, if you had been convicted of a drug offense, you had to do drug testing to show you were not using drugs, and you had to do drug treatment. And this bill would remove those requirements so that people who are felon drug users or felon drug sellers would now be able to receive welfare cash from the government without any sort of drug testing or drug treatment requirement in place. It's an absolutely insane policy that we would take people who are, for example, addicted to drugs and just give them money and not require drug treatment. We all know what's going to happen to that money. They're simply going to use it to feed their drug habit and to feed more crime into our community. So these are the kind of wrong-headed policies that we're down here dealing with in session. We only have a couple weeks left, and it's my hope that we can defeat a number of these bills even before they reach the governor's desk. If they reach the governor's desk, we will need the governor to veto bills like this. So thank you. Until next week, have a great week.